Stanza 4 would begin with Sansa revealing that it has been 3 days since the events of the previous Ned chapter, and we see that she would recap events that occurred over the past few days. On the first day, there was combat outside, and she could tell that it was different from the swordplay that she would usually hear outside in Winterfell, as unlike in the stories, she could hear men begging and screaming and dying. And then that night, Jane Poole was brought and thrown into her room with her. They spent the second day in complete isolation as Cersei continued to make her plans outside as a deathly still lay over Maegor's Holdfast and Lannister men patrolled the grounds. While food and supplies were brought to both the girls, there was, however, notably no information given to them on what was happening outside despite their protests and pleads. And this would end with the second day, showing us that the bells begin to ring outside, which Sansa knows is signalling that the king has died. So it has been at least 2 full days before they report the actual death of the king in order to continue their plans. Now, Sansa has a dream that night of Joffrey on the throne, with herself seated beside him in a gown of woven gold, and she has a crown on her head, implying that she is now his queen, and everyone she has ever known comes before her to bend the knee and to say their courtesies. Now, this is a dream, so we can infer that it may actually be somewhat prophetic in some way, although we never do get this actually happening in the story, so it is questionable as to what is actually the meaning behind this dream. The third day begins with Boris Blount of the Kingsguard coming to take Sansa to see the Queen, and it is revealed to us that it was Aris Oakheart of the Kingsguard who escorted her to her room on the first day before the killing begun, as Cersei believed that Joffrey would never forgive her if anything happened to Sansa during this riot. Sansa is taken to the council chamber where we find Cersei alongside Maester Pycelle, Varys and Littlefinger, all dressed in black, showing they are mourning the king. And Cersei in particular has a black gown with hundreds of dark red rubies sewn into her bodice, which Sansa believes makes her look like she is weeping blood, which again, given the symbolism associated with Cersei in regards to cold, snow, and other such connections to the ancient lore, it's possible that again Cersei is representing Alyssa Arryn here and showing that she is the woman who weeps blood, aka the moon that bleeds. Upon learning that Sansa has been kept with Jane Poole, Cersei is irritated and notes that the girl will be filling Sansa's head with lies and troubles, and so she looks to the councillors to figure out what they should do with the girl, and then ends up placing her in the care of Peter Baelish, which at first seems very innocuous until you realise that what actually ends up happening in the story is that she's basically handed the girl over to be a sex slave. And we even see here that Sansa notices Baelish looking at her, and the thought of him watching her makes her feel like he is imagining her without her clothes on and makes her very uncomfortable. However, this is quickly dismissed from her mind when Cersei brings up that Joffrey loves her, completely distracting her. It is revealed here as well that after killing Tomard in the battle, they have acquired the letter which he was meant to take to Stannis, which they are using as further proof that Ned was a traitor. And it is revealed to us here when Cersei brings it up that the reason they were able to outsmart Ned and perform their coup against him was because Sansa went to Cersei and told her about their plans to be sent away, allowing Cersei to anticipate and prevent this. So we see here as Sansa starts to realise what has happened to the rest of the household, she begins to panic and lash out whenever they bring up that she herself is also a traitor. And so we see of the 4 potential reactions people have to threats of danger or trauma, Sansa, rather than fighting or fleeing or freezing, decides to fawn, continuously begs and pleads to appease them to keep them happy, even going so far as to throw her own sister under the bus in order to protect herself. Cersei needs Sansa to write a letter in order to get her family to not rebel against the throne and prevent war. However, we all know this is probably never going to actually work out, as you've literally taken the head of their household prisoner. Of course, they are going to react, given the histories that we know of regarding the Starks and King's Landing. And Cersei even goes so far as to manipulate Sansa here by offering her that if she does this, then her reward would be to marry Joffrey and become the next queen, showing us that Cersei is using absolute temptation here in order to coerce this child into doing her bidding. As we see the kind eyes that Cersei is seen to have by Sansa quickly become hard as stone when she realizes that Sansa is not doing what she wants when Sansa requests to see Ned. And so, realizing that she can use her position with Joffrey in order to save Ned, Sansa agrees to write the letters. Returning to her room, Sansa sees that Jane is gone and is grateful that she is no longer there crying, unaware of the true fate that has befallen her friend, and suddenly realizes that she has also completely forgotten to ask about the well-being of her sister, Arya. And so she goes on to take the books and read her favourite fantasy stories. And again, we get mention of Florian and Jonquil, as well as Prince Aemon and his doomed love for his brother's queen, which strongly hints to us that this was indeed the case. And we also get introduction to another set of mythical characters here, which probably portray the same story, Lady Shella and the Rainbow Knight, who never appear again anywhere else, as far as I can tell, in any of the story. But if the parallels here can be believed, they have the same exact story that we have seen mirrored through all of these characters that we know of so far.